The Secrets of Technology is brought to you by the StarQuest Production Network and is made possible by our many generous patrons. If you'd like to support the podcast, please visit sqpn.com/give. You're listening to The Secrets of Technology. Hi, I'm Don Bettinelli, and you're listening to The Secrets of Technology, where we discuss the technology news that's important to you from a uniquely Catholic point of view. And joining me today on the panel are Father Michael Gossett. Hi, Father Michael.
Hi, Dom. It's good to be here.
And Thomas Sanhero. Hi, Thomas.
Hey, Dom. How's it going?
Good. So we're the experts on technology, which is why we're doing this twice. We've recorded half of this episode. I realized that the start button on my end didn't go, and so we're restarting our conversation. I'm sure it'll be even better the second time around now that we've rehearsed. Before we get started, folks, just be real with you, folks. I wanted to recommend to you, this episode has come out on Thursday, and if you go to the sqpn.com/secrets to see the Secrets of Movies and TV Shows podcast, you'll find the three of us have done a podcast about that classic 2002 Steven Spielberg Tom Cruise movie, Minority Report, which is a lot about technology and free will and authoritarian governments and things like that. And you probably, if you enjoy this podcast, you're probably going to enjoy that. So I'm going to recommend you go check that out and see what that's about, and then check out some of the other episodes. We've talked a lot about Jurassic Park and some other stuff like that. So you'll find some stuff you'll enjoy there. So our first topic is about the impersonality. I'm not sure that's a word, but about tech being impersonal in times when it should not be there. And what I mean is, there's a story about this guy in California, this poor man who was, he's an older man, a grandfather who was ailing. He was in the ICU at a hospital, and the doctor was coming around to make rounds via, they call it a robot, but it's basically a Skype or FaceTime camera on wheels that moves around, and the doctor talks to people through a video screen. And he gave the man and his family the bad news that he was going to die via this screen on this robot. And a lot of people have said, technology, medical technology, remote telepresence medicine is great, but this is going too far. And so what do you guys think about this story about this poor man getting this news, and his family getting this news that he's about to die via a screen, whether it's on a robot or not? I think it's really kind of, that's sort of the sensational part, but not by someone in person. Is something lost by not having that human presence right there? What do you think, Thomas?
Yeah, I think it's an interesting situation, because I could see this being the norm and not being a big deal, but it needs to be the norm before it's not a big deal. So the doctor needs to be present in a lot of other teleconferences with the patient before he can deliver a piece of news like this just via a screen. And to be fair, I can see the doctor. I can see the point of the doctor doing this. Like, maybe he's the specialist and he needs to deliver the message, and they're going to have some back and forth conversation that wouldn't be appropriate for another doctor that is present, or for a nurse to deliver. And it's important for the patient to be able to ask those questions, but at the same time, it might be just as important for the doctor to be physically there.
It makes me wonder, how long before it was appropriate for or acceptable for a doctor to deliver bad news via telephone, or if that's even okay yet. I mean, is it okay for a doctor to if it was by phone, if he called and said, "Hey, I have some bad news. Your disease has advanced to such a point where your prognosis is not good and you're going to die within weeks." I'm not even sure that's even news you can deliver via telephone yet. Never mind via a computer screen. So I'm curious whether that's even acceptable. That technology is acceptable. Father Michael, your ministry would go into hospitals and give people anointing and that sort of thing. Like, that can't be done by a screen either, right?
It cannot, no. And I think that's what Tom mentioned was the relationship is a big part of it. That if this guy had seen this doctor via FaceTime or Skype on a robot a few times, this wouldn't be such a shocking thing. But for this very sudden news to come to him, and just looking at the image of this technology, it's weird. It's kind of funny looking. To put it into a serious situation like that can be hard. I just like you said, I can't imagine even visiting a parishioner in the hospital this way because they want you there, and just that human presence is a really significant part of comforting someone. And even for a doctor whose job is to, just heal them physically, that whole bedside manner of really being with them, being in the room with them, it's a huge part of it. And until this is normal, I think they just have to walk very carefully with how these sort of things are deployed.
One of the things it says is that because this elderly man had trouble hearing the doctor through the speaker, they had to keep repeating it, which makes it just that much worse. Like,
oh gosh,
you're going to die, you're dying. Like, I mean, could you imagine the horror for the family? The daughter had to keep repeating everything the doctor was saying. I mean, it's just an awkward, unfortunate, difficult situation, made more difficult by putting this barrier between human beings. I get why telepresence medicine is good. If this guy was living in the middle of the country, he doesn't where he's thousands of miles from the closest high quality hospital, where these guys are. Telepresence medicine can be really useful that way, and robotic surgery is something that's coming. I mean, these sorts of things can be positive goods, but they have to be done in such a way so as not to remove that human element that is necessary. Because technology, when used well, helps human beings connect with each other, and when used poorly, it dehumanizes our relationships. And I think that this is a fine example of that. This was a technology fail, and hopefully they'll learn something about it. I do want to mention that the gentleman, his name is Ernest Quintana. He died soon after this happened, and so I think it would be appropriate if we all remember him and his family in our prayers. That would be appropriate. So let's go into our second topic, which we're talking about Facebook again. Facebook is at it again. Mark Zuckerberg, the head of Facebook, the founder, had a post. I almost said a blog post, but it's Facebook. It's a Facebook post where he unveiled that the future of Facebook is in private messaging, encrypted messaging, which kind of reveals that right now Facebook is anything but about privacy. And so he one of the things he says is that the future of Messenger and WhatsApp, because Facebook owns both of those, plus Instagram, he sees that Messenger and WhatsApp will become the main ways that people communicate on the Facebook network. I think what he means there is not that people won't use Facebook newsfeed the way they are, but that he thinks people will use Facebook for messaging more than for anything else. Are you guys ever going to trust Facebook to have private messaging, really?
It's just I don't get this as his reaction to. I just don't understand it as a direction for the company. People use Facebook because it's Facebook, and if you need a messaging service, there's a lot of them out there without going right to Facebook, I think.
Yeah, like one of the things he says is that people are more cautious of having a permanent record of what they've shared. So communications will increasingly shift to private encrypted services. And I just don't, I mean, maybe my circle of friends is different, but I know a lot of people who want to communicate widely. They use Facebook as a platform.
Right.
There are some things you only want to say to a few people. And I am often careful. I mean, given that I'm a semi-public person with my podcasting and that sort of thing. So I'm somewhat careful with talking about more controversial things, politics especially, online, in public. I maybe sometimes I'll do that in a private, a limited group of people. But I just don't see that I don't see that this is what people are wanting in a big way, to close down the circle of people they communicate with. I think people want a bigger
Right.
circle.
Well, it's interesting though. I'm wondering where they get these statistics from. I'm wondering where they're very analytics driven at Facebook and always have been. And so it's intriguing to me that's what they've come up with as their move going forward. And I think it's telling that WhatsApp is being mentioned as much as it is in this because WhatsApp is an international model. Most other countries, you'll hear more about WhatsApp than you will about Facebook or about any of the messaging services we use here because it's more popular internationally. So this might be an example of Facebook's push out of the U.S. and more to a broader international audience.
If I'm someone who lives in a area where there's an oppressive regime where I'm afraid. Right now I'm not afraid of my government. Sometimes I'm wary or cautious about it, but I'm not, at this point, I'm not worried they're coming to kick my door in and drag me off. There are people who live in those situations and they need to be able to communicate with other people in a way that they can be sure that their government, whether it's China or Iran or Venezuela or one of these places, isn't coming to take them away for bad think. They need a private platform, privacy platform for communications that they can trust. And I don't see anyone ever trusting WhatsApp or Instagram or Facebook Messenger to that level. There are options out there. Whether it's, Apple's Messages app is end-to-end encrypted. Apple does the keys are in Apple's servers, so it's not as secure as some other things, but it's much more secure than Messenger. But if you want to be secure, there's there are a couple of services. One is Telegram, one is Signal. I forget which one of those. One of them, it's a little iffy because they're not sure whether the Russian government has a backdoor into it, and I'm trying to remember off the top of my head.
I think that's Telegram because I'm using Signal right now, and Signal I know is not externally controlled, and they're very careful about the keys being truly end to end.
Right. Yeah, you're right. That's it. Yeah, the Telegram was built by a Russian expat who had certain things taken from him by the Russian government. So yeah, that's there are in fact people who are some activists who are trying to block Telegram in Russia so that it can't be used there, which is kind of an interesting little bit of a battle between the little guy and the big guy. But there are ways to be more secure out there, and like Signal is one of them. I just don't see people trusting Facebook in the same way because they'll never be as open.
They'll never be as open, and that's the thing. Is like you can go Signal has open audits. They don't do them as often as I would like, but they do have open audits where they've had security experts come in and check where everything is and make sure that there's nothing lingering around on their servers. And I can never see Facebook doing something that would be incredible.
It would be
a huge shift for the company. Like it would be a really amazing shift.
Well, and so much of their business model depends on being able to see what we're doing and advertise to us based on that. And so it seems against the interests that they've built up for themselves. One of the things they've talked about is creating a 24-hour burn your private messages aspect, which is sort of like what Snapchat has. And so between that and what they already get with like Instagram stories and Facebook stories, they really seem to be going after Snapchat's business model.
Right. Yeah, that's the first thing I thought when I saw this was like, oh, they look like they're gunning for Snapchat really hard now. And I don't understand Snapchat. I will be the first to admit that I am not in that generational range to really get Snapchat, but it's been pretty popular, and it's something that a lot of people flock to because of the assumed privacy of having the message deleted, and because of the nature of the platform of just being able to create short snippets that they could share. And like you said, Facebook's taking some of those already, but
right.
It's interesting to see him go for the last little bit of Snapchat's uniqueness.
Yes, your distinctiveness and uniqueness will be added to our own.
And I don't see high school students or college students migrating to Facebook from Snapchat because of that. They found the thing that works for them.
Now they've already moved on to TikTok, man. They're gone. They're not even on Snapchat anymore.
Yeah.
Well, and that's the thing is the Snapchat itself is already in decline. So much of Facebook has taken some of what they had. I mean, one of the reasons why Facebook bought Instagram was to kind of combat, to kind of cover the back door that Snapchat was coming in, and so many of the kids who left Facebook ended up at Instagram for a while, and like you said, now they're moving to something else, and that's one of the things about social media that's got to scare people like Zuckerberg and other people at Facebook is how fickle the social media consumer is at a certain level. People like us, older, we kind of just get set, but that younger demographic that everybody really wants in their back pocket, it will just drop an app and move to the next thing at the drop of a hat. It's just it's so ephemeral. So what I think what he's trying to do here is his idea is expand who we are to kind of cover those bases more and more, and offer more. So one of the things that he mentions is that perhaps Facebook would fund this private messaging system, since they can't make money off of mining your data in your private messages anymore. If it's encrypted, they'd have to make money somehow. So they might create a Facebook crypto coin, like a face coin.
Please no.
I'm thinking, could you be more of like Evil Corp from Mr. Robot? I mean, this is going full Mr. Robot here. I just can't imagine anyone thinking that putting your wealth in Facebook's hands is a good idea.
If it's an investment, some people are willing to make it, though. That's the crazy thing. Like the Bitcoin concept has always been really interesting to me, because the blockchain is basically just investing in security. That's all it is. Is just I'm dumping money into the fact that we're going to make this thing more secure. And I can see a realm where people are like, oh, Facebook is reliable, where Bitcoin hasn't been. Bitcoin has been a very volatile system, and sometimes you're up, sometimes you're way down. And it just kind of depends on the market. Whereas Facebook would have a little more staying power. It'd be like a Johnson & Johnson type of stock. It's going to be around for a while. It's going to be pretty solid. You might have a lot of people that invest in it.
Bitcoin's strength is also its weakness, which is because it's completely independent of any authority. It's volatile, and if you lose your key, you're done. Your wealth is gone. And we've had stories of people losing millions of dollars worth of Bitcoin, stolen or just lost even. Whereas if you have a regulating authority, or a controlling authority, like say Facebook might be, you lose that. You don't have as much of that volatility, perhaps, and you have a little bit more of the security of not losing your key, but someone has an insight into your way that you do your financial transactions. I would never be comfortable with that bit, but
no. I'm with you.
It's reminding me, and I can't remember the name of the app. I don't know if it's in China. It's somewhere in that area, but there's an app that a lot of people use that we don't use here at all, but they use it for financial transaction. That it's like an app they use for everything, and the name escapes me, but I could see Facebook kind of reaching for a similar thing. It's kind of like Apple Pay and all these things, but all
like Venmo and Zelle
rolled into one, with messaging and money. And I could see that could be successful in a worldwide way, even if it isn't here.
Yeah,
right. Because I mean, again, outside of the U.S., there is that need for portability of money and being a little bit outside the system. Some people, want to have a little bit. I mean, already criminal enterprises are using things like Bitcoin and other stuff to move cash around, outside of the banking system. I mean, there's a big incentive. It is sort of outside what our main topic is, but we ought to bring someone in to talk about Bitcoin at some point, because I'm no expert, but I'd love to learn more about it. I have an old college classmate who is working for a company they're doing the first major transaction via the blockchain of like a real estate transaction of multiple buildings via a blockchain. I'm not sure exactly how all the moving pieces work, but it would be interesting to find out how that is. Maybe we could talk about that in the future.
Well, yeah.
I'd love to hear about that, definitely.
So one aspect of this that is sort of related is, and it's topical. Some politicians are talking about it, and I don't necessarily want to get into the politics of it, but is Facebook too powerful? Should it be this talk of either regulating it or breaking it up? Should one for-profit company have a database of nearly virtually every person in the country in all their relationships and everything going on in their lives? One of the things that a lot of people don't realize is even if you don't have a Facebook profile or account, Facebook they've denied it, but people have shown evidence of it. The Facebook has what's called a shadow profile of you based on all the people in your life who have data about you and are on Facebook. So someone, whether it's a spouse or a friend or a family member or employer or somebody, and all their information, there's enough information that they share that Facebook knows who you are and enough about you to have a sort of profile of you. And it's kind of scary to think of how much data they have. And in fact, a lot of these companies have to dial back the things they do with it in order not to scare people too much about, when you just crunch the numbers and run through algorithms, what you can learn about people. So is Facebook getting too powerful? Should we be worried about Facebook? We keep coming back to this topic, and I'm sure we'll talk about it again. But I mean, just what do you think?
I had a couple weird occurrences where someone I'd never met before, and I spent time with, and then they were suggested as a possible friend for me that evening. Mm-hmm. That sort of puts that in my head, like there is something that's beyond us. But the problem is, I think, that we so eagerly fed it that
right.
that data is there,
right.
And all those pictures and everything because we poured them in over these past several years. And
right.
It is a really frightening prospect of that, whether you like it or not, you're in there.
Yeah. Well, I think some of it's a combination of things too. That Facebook is definitely powerful, yes, but I saw a great report, and I'll try and find a link for you guys for this. So you can put it in the show notes about using metadata about the men who were part of the revolution of the United States, and it just took surface level information, so clubs that these men belonged to, and it took that information and then attached several of them together and figured out that if they could attack several key people and lock them up before anything happened, that they could stop the revolution. And like the main name that it came down to was Paul Revere. That was the circled name. This is the one. If we grab this guy, we can stop a lot of the things that are going to happen. And then from there, it had all the signers of the Declaration were the next in the list. And so, and that was data that was freely available then as well. And so I think there's a history of us having information out there about ourselves. It's just that we've moved as a society and as a race into this realm of being able to have that data and actually do something.
Right. And crunching the numbers. Yeah.
Right. Crunching numbers. And that's it. Is that computers do that. That's what computers are really, really good at. And so, we've created this monster, but Facebook isn't really the monster. It's just all of the tech that we have
Skynet.
That's capable of doing this math. Yeah. and eventually it's going to get there. That's the once the robots can, they will be able to look at all this stuff, and they're going to do it.
Well, one of my favorite stories in this regard, and it's not really Facebook related, but it's related to big data, is several years ago, this guy got this mailer from Target in the mail to his teenage daughter, and the mailer was for prenatal vitamins, a sale on prenatal vitamins, and for other baby care stuff. And he was outraged. How dare you send this information to my daughter, who's a teenager, assuming that she's pregnant with a child, and he comes to find out she actually was, and the way they knew was because their data shows that women who buy certain things, not like buy diapers or, things actually related to pregnancy, but women who buy this cleanser and this kind of shoe are statistically more likely to be pregnant. I don't think it was cleanser and a shoe, but it was things that just seemed completely unrelated, but there was such a high correlation to being pregnant that it was worthwhile for them to send them a book of coupons for pregnancy-related materials. And once the story got out, people were freaking out. So Target had to change what they did, which is now the mailers offer all kinds of things, but hidden within it are all the pregnancy and maternal-related things that they really are trying to sell. I mean, it's fascinating and kind of scary a little bit how, again, with this computing power, how they can crunch the numbers. And like you said, Thomas, if the British had 10,000 mathematicians working all together, they could have done it too 200 years ago. It's just the scale that we can operate on now. Mm-hmm. And that's one of the things why I think these proposals to break up the Googles and the Apples and the Facebooks and whatnot, I don't know that's a solution. I mean, it fixes the short term, these companies, but what does it do about other companies or nation states or whatever?
And I think it's a symptom. That's if you're talking about breaking up Facebook, you're talking about treating a symptom, not and I don't know that it's a problem. That's the thing, is that it's really hard to say that this amount of computing power and this amount of ability to figure out that a woman's pregnant just by the things she's buying in the store. That's creepy on one end, but it could be life-saving on another end.
Yeah, if you're a pregnant woman, it's incredibly useful if you're actually looking for that sort of thing.
Or if we're looking for data like for people that are in danger of having a heart attack, and you can say, oh, well, people who, statistically speaking, people who do these three things are more likely to have a heart attack. You can have the doctor give them a call and say, hey, we should do some blood work for you, and could save people's lives because of that kind of stuff. So there's room for it to be beneficial. Obviously, the natural tendency is to use it to make money, but there's room for it to be beneficial.
We're definitely going to come back to this topic again because it's a big topic and there's a lot to say about it. But I do want to get to our third topic. But that very interesting, and I want to hear what people have to say about this, the listeners. So definitely we want to hear from you on that. So our third segment today is another big story, something big that's happened this week, is the Disney company and the 20th Century Fox are now one. Disney has now officially acquired 20th Century Fox. And this is a big deal in general because it's they said it's the largest media merger in history. Do you guys remember when AT&T and Time Warner merged a few years ago, and everyone was like, oh my goodness, this is the biggest thing. This is even bigger. It was a $71 billion purchase. What is Disney getting now? They've got everything from Aliens to The Simpsons. What they don't get is all the Fox TV stuff. So Fox News, the Fox TV network, because the regulators won't let Disney own ABC and Fox TV because they're still in the 20th century. And oh my gosh, we can't have one company owning two broadcast networks, never mind all of the cable channels that they already own. I mean, but that's just the way it is. But the sports were another big, another big breakup point, that they had made sure that all the sports stayed outside of Disney's control. Right. Yeah. Disney has ESPN, but they can't own the NFL rights that Fox has and that sort of stuff. Right. So what does this mean from a tech point of view and just from a media consumption point of view? Some folks are focusing on the idea that Hollywood has now gone from 6 major studios. So basically, there are lots of little studios and production houses, but almost everything funnels through 6 major studios, Disney being the largest now. And now that's 5 major studios. And people are saying, okay, are we going to end up with one company controlling all of our media? On the other hand, other people point out, well, look, yes, the traditional studios are consolidating, but that now we have places like Amazon and Netflix and pretty soon Apple, and probably within a couple of days of everyone hearing this, and so on and so forth, are all going to be our media production houses. So what do you think about this merger? What do you think this means for us and for media?
It's at such a high level. I mean, when Disney got all the Star Wars stuff, it really, what it meant for us is there's going to be lots of Star Wars movies.
Right.
And I think that's the thing, kind of like we said with the Facebook segment, is so much of this is about money. There are people in these studios and in these jobs that are they're artists and making things because this is what they do. But on the bigger picture, just so much of it is these are companies and they're out to generate revenue. So I don't know how that changes it for us when, like you said, going to one fewer gigantic company that owns tons of other little companies making content. That won't change that much. I think the sort of interesting thing is just does it leave room for the small people? Does it? And I don't mean the Netflixes and the Amazons, but kind of just people coming up from outside of the system to be creative in ways that maybe they can't be within it. And who knows? We've all, for a long time, we've lived in this world where these gigantic organizations are the ones who do these things, and it seems to have worked out okay.
Well, if Disney would not be such a bear about the copyrights,
that's the big
I would
thing.
say this is fine. But they're so horrible about the copyrights and about making sure that they maintain the copyrights and they extend the copyrights.
And not just their own copyrights, but by extension, by their... So just to kind of let people know, so what happens is copyrights are supposed to expire after a certain number of years. And that's for the good of society, that the artist should have control of the thing they create for a period of time so that they and their family can earn a living off of it. But for society's sake, things should enter into the public domain after a certain period of time so that everyone could benefit. That thus the works of William Shakespeare are widely distributed because they're not copyrighted. But what happened was when Disney came along and started becoming more powerful, they started funneling lots of money to favored politicians who would then pass laws that would extend copyright. And it just always so happened that copyright always seemed to extend back to when Mickey Mouse was copyrighted, when Mickey Mouse began. From that date and then onward.
And it affects everything. And this is the thing. It's like, if it just affected Disney properties, even still, that would be
bad
something.
enough.
But it affects every copyright that comes from that time. So there are novels that can't be adapted because the estate has passed and
or printed.
The copyright still exists.
Yeah,
or even printed. Yeah,
that no one's printing. That someone could come along and say, "I want to print a new edition of this." Through print on demand on Amazon or whatever, or as an ebook, that they can't, and so no one can read that book because it's copyrighted, right?
And that's the real shame, is that it's the bigger you make this company, the more things come under their umbrella, the more they're going to want to protect that copyright expansion. And the sad thing, and honestly, the sad thing is, as much as I love Disney, and my house is a Disney house, we love the mouse. We live close enough that we go every couple of years. We buy an annual pass, and we're out at Disney for the whole year. So I love it, but it worries me that they are getting to the point right now where they're like, oh, we need to re-up the copyright on a lot of these things. So we have a live action Beauty and the Beast, live action Aladdin, a live action Lion King, which is not actually live action. But they're doing this because as long as they are recreating these things, they can go back and say, well, that we are reclaiming that copyright. And so the copyright's not on the 1996 Aladdin, but it's on this new one that's just a rehash of the old one. So all the same stuff still applies.
The clock starts again for another 75 or 80 years. Right.
Right. Mm-hmm. And so now you got to kind of look at this stuff and go, okay, well, how many more of these are we going to have that it's just going to, it's going to go in waves. So now we can predict all of the Marvel movies, because eventually Iron Man's going to come back so that they can re-up that copyright, and it's just going to be this
and Star
cycle.
Wars and everything will rebooted. Yeah. What was we will live in the Matrix because it will constantly reboot.
Exactly.
Does Disney own the Matrix now? I don't remember who owns that.
Oh man.
But I don't know if I want to see Disney's The Matrix remake. It's not that interesting to me.
Couldn't be worse than the last two Matrix movies.
Oh my gosh.
So Disney now has Lucasfilm, they have Marvel, they have Pixar, they have now they have the Avengers, they have and they used to own 30% of Hulu. Now they have Fox's 30%, so now they own 60% of Hulu. And on top of that, they're going to be starting Disney Plus. And one thing people talk about is one of the reasons why Disney would have gone out to buy this is Disney wants the Disney Plus streaming service to not just be Disney animated movies and Pixar and Marvel and Star Wars. They want it to have lots of content. And so how do you do that? You go out and buy a company with lots of content. So you can predict that Disney Plus will have The Simpsons and will have, all that stuff, Aliens and Titanic and all, everything will be on the Disney Plus service. And frankly, they're going to make it so that you have to subscribe. I mean, what could be more compelling than the new Star Wars TV series that are streaming and every Disney and Fox movie and show that's ever been out there? I mean, that is a compelling argument. They own FX and National Geographic Channel and Fox Searchlight Pictures now, and I mean, you can just go on and talk about what Disney is now.
It was one of those things that I bemoaned when they bought out the Star Wars franchise and missing out on that opening fanfare.
Yes.
And now that opening fanfare is officially dead. It
right.
is no more. And that's pretty terrifying. It's a big deal.
Of course, now that they own it, maybe they could bring it back just for Star Wars.
Right. just for that opening credits. Dun, da, 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 da. Well, I'll tell you, my favorite bit of news about this was on NPR this morning when I was listening to it, and I don't remember which person it was that was speaking, but they hummed the intro fanfare, and I was like, yes, I'm so glad this is something we're talking about right now.
Oh, maybe we could. I probably shouldn't. I was gonna say I'll put that into the show. But I'd probably get a takedown notice on
right.
Because of it.
You don't want Disney after you.
I don't want Disney lawyers after me. The lawyers with the ears.
So maybe they'll want SGPN next.
There's a number.
But the one thing I really would look forward to in this is they are starting to realize that the fan base generates motivation for seeing things. And so they're starting to realize that, letting a Star Wars tribute film show on YouTube is a good thing. Mm-hmm. And so they're starting to allow that kind of stuff. And so they're getting more loose with what they're claiming is intellectual property. And I'm hoping that as they get bigger, they can let more of that stuff slide. Because they have more properties to distribute it along. They have a lot more stuff that they've got in the fire already going. They don't need to worry about maintaining a lot of this stuff. And they've got the power to be able to say, no, we really do. That we're going to own this thing now. You need to take it down so that we can move on to this other bit. And so my hope there is that they're going to move into that phase where they let more people play with the intellectual property in an open way. And kind of open source some of it as they go along.
Right.
That's true. Yeah.
That letting fans pay homage to your properties only creates greater loyalty and passion for it. And when you punish them for that passion and loyalty, you're only hurting yourself.
Exactly.
There was a case recently where a fan had put together a really high, flashy, well done Darth Vader Star Wars film,
mm-hmm.
and it had original music that evoked the memory of Star Wars music, but it was still original. But some lawyer working not for Disney directly, but for the company that licenses the music for performance, they instituted a takedown notice, actually, it wasn't. I have to be clear, it wasn't a takedown notice. It was a demonetization notice, which means a YouTube video, the owner of the video cannot make money off of it, but the owner of the copyright, they can start to make money off of ads showing on that person's video. And this guy was saying, look, I knew all the time that as a Star Wars tribute film or a fan film, I was not allowed to make money off of it, so I never intended to. It just irks that they are doing this to make money off of the back of my work. And it got some notice, and people were talking about it. And someone at Lucasfilm went to these lawyers at the licensee and said, "Cut it out. You're hurting the brand." And they reversed it. And that's the sort of thing that you're talking about, Thomas. That shows that they understand we're in a new time where we have to make allowances for the passion of fans who are creative and can get that creative work out there.
And you would think a company like Disney that has such really passionate fans for all these things now, for all these different these worlds that they have and that they own, would have an understanding of that.
Right. Talking about SQPN being acquired by Disney. I will do it in exchange for family passes to Galaxy's Edge.
There you go.
The
Maybe
new
for
Disney.
all of us, maybe.
Yeah, exactly. The new Disney Star Wars theme park. Oh man, I want me and my kids. We'd so want to go. My wife rolls her eyes at it. She's but we're all in. We're all in. We want to go and want to be. Anyway, so that's today's story on the Disney and Fox merger. We'll be following that like we do the other stories in the future. So I want to move on to our final segment. I want to talk about our picks of the week. Thomas, what's your pick of the for this week?
My pick for this week is my 3D printer of choice. I got a 3D printer for Christmas this last year. It is a Creality Ender 3. It is a $200 3D printer. So
wow,
very entry level. It's intimidating in the sense that you put it together and you're like, there's no way this is going to be as easy as it is, and it really is. And if you get lost with it, there is an incredible group of people on YouTube that have put up videos about everything you never wanted to know about this printer. And for $200, you cannot beat the prints that come out of this thing. With a little bit of tweaking and all the stuff is, again, online. You can find great resources for it. You come out with some fantastic prints. And the really crazy thing is I have the first spool of printer filament that I put in. It cost $15. It's still sitting on the printer, and I have had this thing going almost nonstop since Christmas. So
wow,
I'm making a lot of minifigs for Dungeons and Dragons and different things like that.
Cool.
But I'm still running on basically the same spool that I started with.
I was curious, like about what kinds of things that we could make with it if we got such things. Like so anything that could be made out of, say, solid plastic, essentially.
Yeah, and the plastic is actually really durable. If you're interested in finding out more about what kind of things you can 3D print, I recommend checking out Thingiverse. It's a website that has a lot of free to download 3D files, and a lot of them are ready to print. You just run it through one program that sets it up for your printer specifically, and then you put it in your printer and it's ready to go. And there's really neat stuff on there. A lot of it's toys, but then there's a lot of functional stuff too that you can just you can print yourself up a toolkit that you can store tools in. You can if you lose a doorknob, you can print a doorknob.
Yeah, broken parts for things.
For
Yeah. I'm looking kind of paging through the site a little. Actually, I bet you could build a lot of Lego bricks if you needed them. Although I'm sure that the designs are copyrighted. But if you did it yourself and didn't sell it.
Exactly. And you can make all the measurements. And if you have a good program, I use a Blender 3D personally. It's a free open source 3D design program. And you can put all of the dimensions in there just the way it is and print yourself out some nice little minifigs. Wow, that's cool. Ooh, someone has an AT-AT walker, an AT-AT walker that they built. And some of them are articulated too, where you print them in pieces and then you put the pieces together, and now all of a sudden you have a moving toy as well, or a moving model. I mean, it's amazing to me that we're at the point now where we talked about Jurassic Park, the third Jurassic Park movie recently, where they built a 3D model of the resonating chamber for Velociraptor. It was so amazing and advanced, and it's like now it's like everybody can. They have one in the corner of their house. It was essentially a replicator. That's awesome. Right. And $200, that's that's the cost of a regular printer pretty much. Yeah. That's an appliance. That's a home appliance. Wow. That's amazing. And like I said, I think a lot of people think the filament's going to cost a lot of money, but I got a whole kilogram of it for $15. It's good filament, and most of the stuff that I print is under 10 kilograms or under 10 grams when you print it. So you can get a lot of stuff out of it. Wow, that's awesome.
Nice.
Good pick. Father Michael, what's your pick of the week?
This is a weird one, but it's a YouTube channel that I subscribe to called Journey with Jono. And I found out about it through a podcast I listened to, but it's a guy in the UK and he lives all year on this thing called a narrowboat, and it's a big long boat that sails down all these canals, and it's very peaceful. It's a very relaxing channel with lots of just nice water scenes. But for this podcast, he goes into a lot of detail of the tech and the work that he does to live on this. So a big part of it was just how you heat it and how you insulate it. But then he gets into a little of how he produces the videos and how he gets the internet while he's traveling around, sometimes through the countryside. And so it's kind of just this continual project and journey that you can observe of a guy really like making a home in a very strange place, but really making do. And especially if you're into building things, it's a really fascinating sort of story to watch. He's got a dog. He's a funny guy, and you get to see lots of beautiful scenery of the English countryside.
So it's in the UK, yeah.
Yes, yeah.
Okay. Yeah, I'm like looking through all the videos, and he's got ones on like solar power for the boat, and the hardware and software he has to use to manage the systems, and so it seems very much DIY. Like he does the stuff himself.
Very much so, yeah.
Wow, this is pretty cool, and he lives on this boat. That's awesome.
Yeah, all year. Wow. That's what he calls himself, a year-rounder.
Wow, that's awesome. Good pick. I like that. Man, there's so many interesting YouTube channels. We talking about like Disney and Fox and media consolidation. There are people out there who are so creative, and all they have is a camera and a computer to edit the video, and they're doing stuff that would never be shown on TV.
Right.
But it's fascinating stuff. So that's
I guess
a good
there
pick.
is room for the little guy in that way.
Yeah, as long as there's a YouTube out there to show it on, or something similar to that. So mine is I have a software pick this week. Another piece. This is again another piece of Mac software. I'm a Mac guy, so I'm going to share Mac software. But this one is a program I found. One of the biggest issues I've had with my computer is keeping the software up to date. Now, some software updates automatically. The stuff I get from the Mac App Store, stuff I get through the SetApp subscription service. I've mentioned that as a previous pick. Some stuff like that. And sometimes when you launch a program, it says, "Hey, I have an update. You want to update it?" But it can be annoying that when you're trying to get something done to be hit with an update, a message, and you just want to do your work. You don't want to have to wait for the update to go. So there's a piece of software called Mac Updater from corecode.io. It's a for-pay program, but I found it to be well worth it. And basically what it does is it scans your computer, finds all the software on it, and then checks for updates on a daily basis. And when it finds it, it says, "Hey, I found these updates. We want to run the update." And for most software, it will update it for you. You just say, "Good, update it," and it'll run the update. Now, some software is not compatible with it, and you need to do a manual update, but it will still walk you through the process. Here, launch the software, and they're constantly adding more software that they can do automatic updating for. So it's Mac Updater, and it scans once a day, opens up a window, and right now I'm looking. I have 4 programs that are available to be updated, and it's been rock solid. I've tried various different systems in the past. I cobbled together an keyboard maestro scripting using arcane terminal commands and all kinds of stuff like that, and it was just way too much and too hard to maintain. This is really easy to maintain, and it's inexpensive. I'm pretty sure it's a one-time fee. Let me open up the website here. I just double check it. And he has other great software too that are little utilities that are very. Yeah, it's a one-time purchase, so it's not a subscription, and it is $10.
Pretty great.
Yeah. So it's a good piece of software, and it's been rock solid so far. So that's my pick.
In a similar vein to that one, have you tried Homebrew?
Yes,
it's for Unix junkies.
Right. Yeah, I have a couple of little Unix programs that I've worked with or used and had to install via Homebrew, which is we can get into that at some point. Some of that stuff, but. Yes, I have used that. So before we go, I want to take a moment to thank our patrons who make it possible for us to create the Secrets of Technology, which, by the way, folks, has been growing, and we really appreciate. We love hearing from you guys, and we're getting more and more listeners all the time, and it has to be entirely due to your. I'm going to go off on a tangent here, but this is entirely to your influence by you recommending the show to your friends and family, and writing reviews. Every new listener is someone that you guys have recommended the show to, and we greatly appreciate that. But we also appreciate the people who are providing a financial support for us to continue to do this. It costs us money. We wouldn't be doing this if we didn't have people giving us financial support. And so today I want to thank Stephen B., Lawrence S., Nicholas D., Richard M., and Stuart J. It's through their generous donations and all of our patrons at sqpn.com/give that it makes it possible for us to continue the Secrets of Technology and all the shows we do at SQPN. And you can join them by visiting sqpn.com/give. So that's it from us. What do you think of our discussion? We talked about the telepresence robot. We talked about Facebook and its privacy initiative. Talked about Disney Fox merger, and then our picks of the week. Go to our SQPN Facebook page, facebook.com/StarQuestMedia, or to our website, sqpn.com/technology, and leave us some feedback there on the show, or send us an email to technology@sqpn.com. We'll put the links that we discussed and to the articles we talked about in our show notes at sqpn.com. Please, if you can, like each episode on that we post on Facebook, on our Facebook page, retweet it on Twitter where we're at SQPN. You can leave us comments. All of those things help us get the show out to more people. Subscribe to the show if you have not yet subscribed in iTunes, Google Play, Stitcher, TuneIn, your favorite podcast app, or on YouTube, where you should hit the bell to get notifications. And if you can, write a review in iTunes or one of the podcast directories. All those things really do help a lot. Until next time, Thomas Sanherho, thank you for joining me and sharing the secrets of technology.
Thanks for having me.
Father Michael Gossett, thank you as well.
Great discussion. Thank you.
And once again, I'm Dom Bettinelli. Thank you for listening to the Secrets of Technology on StarQuest.